What terrible specimens have you had to endure for roommates? 3 weeks before I was to move out of a place, my replacement moved in. My roommate had apparently told her it was okay. So now 3 people lived in an apartment meant for 2. From what I could tell, all she did was sit on the couch and watch TV. A week before I was to move out, a friend of mine came over to help me pack. Apparently, the replacement thought I was moving out that day and that she could finally move into my room instead of sleeping in a common area. When she found out that wasn't the case, she got upset with my friend. Over the next week, she asked me repeatedly, "So when are you moving out?" I told her it would be at the end of the month because I couldn't move into my apartment until then. She said I should move out sooner. What I think happened is my roommate told her I was moving out the prior month and that I was overstaying my welcome. FYI, your former roommate was collecting double rent. That's usually pretty illegal. Mine told me not to bring my friends over because Asian people made her uncomfortable. One roommate would leave the house without their keys, not because they forgot them, but because he didn't like having keys. Ever. The request was to stop locking the door when I left the house. This is the second time I've read this. Like, do these people want to be robbed? I'll never trust someone like this. I feel like it's an elaborate plot to steal your stuff. Leave the door unlocked when you go out. Okay. And then they take your stuff with their friends. When I was in the dorms in college, I roomed with this dude who I didn't know. The guy played football and was about 300 plus pounds. Well, the problem is he wouldn't shower. Ever. Like no fricking joke. Our room smelled like hot mayonnaise and BO. I would spray and clean. Well, eventually, I got noseblind. This mother fricker finally got a girl to come to the room. When she asked him why it stank, I heard him whisper, "It's him." I fricking blew up. I asked old girl whose side looked like it would stink. My side was spotless, while his was full of half-eaten food and sweaty clothes. She ended up agreeing and leaving. The only cleaning he did was when he would come home from practice, take off his sweaty clothes, and then proceed to Febreze them and then go and take a nap. Luckily, the room was really big. Finn. I died inside when you said it smelled like hot mayo. You have my utmost sympathy as someone who hates mayo with every fiber of my being. And that guy sounds like a fricking douche. I probably couldn't live with the gentleman in question here, and frankly, I don't understand how anyone could. Surely there's someone you can go to and complain in the dorm situation like this. She told me I needed to stay somewhere else overnight because her new boyfriend was staying for the first time. I said if she had given me more notice, then I could maybe have sorted something, but she had told me 2 hours before I needed to leave. So what did you do? I told her I'd go out for some food, then when I came back I was happy to stay in my room. She shouted a lot about how unreasonable I was being, but that was still what I did. My freshman year in college, he insisted on having 2 box fans placed in our window, one facing in, one facing out, in order to circulate the air. Seems like no big deal, right? Until you realize that he insisted they be on full power every night of the year. Didn't matter if it was 100 degrees outside or -10. My bed was the closest to the window, and if I tried to get up to turn them off, he'd get hostile as frick. Frick that guy. Shove one fan up his butt and the other down his throat to circulate the air. 1% evil, 99% hot air. I use window fans, still do, even in January. I love and need very cold, moving air while sleeping. Sophomore year, my best friend at college really wanted to room with me. I knew my cold air thing would be a problem because every other girl I've ever met likes it very hot in their room, like 70 plus degrees Fahrenheit. Like my freshman roommate kept it at 90 degrees plus and she would crack the window to keep the radiators going at 90 degrees Fahrenheit. It was just horrible. Anyway, so I knew this would be a problem. I told my friend no, I wanted to live alone. She insisted she loved to sleep with window fans too, she loved the cold, blah blah blah. She kept asking for weeks. Eventually I said yes to rooming with her, with the clear understanding that I'd be using my window fan all year. Well, we roomed together and I used my fan, and January rolled along with frigid temperatures. My friend suddenly stopped speaking to me. I would ask her what's wrong and she didn't answer. She acted like I didn't exist. This lasted a couple of months before I remembered she had told me she had a blog. I looked up her blog and saw many posts dating back months complaining about what an awful person I am for freezing her to death with my window fan and how much she hates me for it. I was pretty surprised because she had never said anything. As soon as I read the blog, I asked her about it and she flipped out, went to the dean saying I'd invaded her privacy for reading her blog, and asked to be moved to a different room. She moved out and she never spoke to me again. So anyway, similar story to yours. I hope I wasn't the butthole here. I also wrote her a nice, long Facebook message right before graduation wishing her well, telling her what I admired about her and how she'd do great in life, and apologizing for losing her friendship sophomore year, but she never wrote back. I'm still puzzled. The fact that there is someone out there who can think they are rationally calling you the bad guy and hate you for this really concerns me. What the frick? When you repeatedly warn someone about it, they do it, and find out you're right, someone is a butthole and it isn't you. I have the master bedroom with the bathroom, and pay $65 more a month for this. My roommate, whose room is on my side of the house, gets to use my bathroom because we agreed he could. He lets his one-night stands and drunk friends walk through my room when I'm not there to use that bathroom, rather than the other one closer to the front door. I'm now missing 2 phone chargers and a pair of $100 headphones, but I'm missing them because I must have misplaced them. Can you buy a lock for your door? After that, our agreement would change. Not really a roommate, but a little stepbrother. He's 12. He wants to rotate beds from week to week. So I sleep in my bed, then the next week my stepbrother's bottom bunk, then the next week his top bunk. I don't want to sleep in either one of your beds. That's why it's called my bed. Just go to sleep. Explain to him that your sheets are full of your dead skin, farts, drool, pee, dribble, and that's why he shouldn't want to sleep in your bed. Then explain that his bed is full of his dead skin, farts, drool, pee, dribble, and that's why it's gross of him to ask you to sleep there. Well, now I don't even want to sleep in my bed. On move-out day, my sophomore year of college, I was cleaning my half of the dorm room. Mind you, the room had been a mess before. Both me and my roommate were very messy people, so the mess itself didn't bother us much. So cleaning my half took quite a while. But by the end of it, all of my stuff was packed in my car and I was ready to go. When I was done, my roommate said, "I'll have my stuff packed up in about an hour." I asked her why she was telling me that, and she said it was so I could finish cleaning. I took one look at her, set down the bag of cleaning supplies, and said, "Here's all the stuff you need." Then I turned in my key and left. Like heck I'm going to stay behind an hour later than I needed to mop the floor and clean the surfaces of your side of the room, when you did jack all to help me. Handed me $50 while asking me to get them green herb while they owed me $700 in back rent. Now they owe you $650 and still need green herb. Had a roommate in college who refused to take his keys with him when he went out to the bar because he didn't want a lump in his pocket. He would then come home after everyone else was already asleep, and when the doors were locked, he would start pounding on the door and shouting, "This is bullcrap! I frickin' live here!" until he woke someone up and got them to go downstairs and let him in. Oh, frick me, that would not fly. Oh, he would though, right down the fricking stairs. Yep, for me, the net result of that situation would be the purchase of some noise-cancelling headphones and a grumpy flatmate the next morning, because there's no way I'm getting up on a regular basis for a moron like that. Oh, I had a neighbor like that in a building once. At least once a week, for more months than I can remember, he'd come home drunk in the wee hours, beating on his door and screaming until his roommate let him in. One night he was so drunk he decided pulling the fire alarm was the best way to get his roommate to open the door. I wasn't invited to the blanket party that was held for him by some of the other building residents after he did that, but he moved out very quickly afterwards. What's a blanket party? When a group of people beat someone with bars of soap in a blanket, it's usually used on someone who's hampered or held back or teed off an entire group. It's a percussive attitude adjustment tool. We had several rooms and one was huge, meant for 2 or 3 people. It had a sink and 2 walk-in closets. After signing the lease, she announced that she needed the giant room to herself because she had PTSD and OCD. She wouldn't explain herself any further and threw a passive-aggressive tantrum for a month when we refused to cram ourselves into the 2 tiny rooms with 4 people so that she could have the big one to herself. We told her that she could be in the big room with another roommate, but she didn't want that. She just chose the small room eventually. We never heard the end of it either. It was always our fault that she was late to school because she didn't have a private bathroom and crap. Before you ask, yes, this person was in therapy, but according to her, she was in therapy because she needed to learn to be selfless and put herself first. She had frequently used that as an excuse to be selfish. My therapist thinks I need to put myself first. I roomed with another girl that was like this, but at least it was just me and her. She claimed because of her OCD and obsessive shopping, she needed a bigger room with the private bathroom and large closet. So I got the small room and shared the bathroom with guests and her, since it was closer to the living room and everyone used it if they were over. Since she used that bathroom too, I had to maintain it to a very high cleanliness standard for her. Meanwhile, her private bathroom was a pigsty. I had to pay 50-50 rent to get a much smaller room and share a bathroom. I was out of there when the lease ended the following year. Mental illness isn't an excuse to be a jerk. Ugh, I agree. It's an insult to the millions of mentally ill people who are perfectly nice and considerate. Your roommate sounds terrible. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. I had a roommate who moved out without warning about 2 months before my lease was up. She pretty much disappeared and left most of her stuff in the apartment. She also didn't pay up for her remainder of the rent. 3 years later, I get a phone call from her. I'm living 1,500 miles away and have been in several different apartments in several different states during the interim. She says I need to ship all of her furniture and belongings immediately. What do you mean you dragged everything out to the curb the week after I left? You're a terrible roommate. You owe me for the value of my things. I stopped answering her calls and eventually she gave up. I would have sold them all. Well, her stuff wasn't even that nice. Mine was adamant that I tried doing the deed with him. For clarification, I'm a straight guy and I didn't know he was gay. He said that I might like it, but I'd never know if I didn't try it. I've had that phrase used on me too, from my best friend at the time. How do you know you're not gay if you've never done anything gay? How did you react? I kinda froze up and stammered something about how painful it would be without lube. Then I left. I don't think his family thinks much of me anymore because I didn't visit him in hospital a couple of months later when he was in a coma. I don't think they know their son wanted me to top him either, so I don't blame them for being mad at me. I'd planned to spend my birthday evening quietly reading and watching Italian murder mysteries. Roommates announced that I needed to go make plans because they were having friends over and didn't want it to be awkward. The friends they were inviting were always so incredibly rude to me. So I smiled and said, sure, I'll make plans, and invited 3 of our neighbors and half of my creative writing class to eat cake and watch Italian murder mysteries. My crappy roommates had to go to their friend's apartment instead. He was a germaphobe and a bit stupid. He wanted all the other housemates to completely scrub the tub with cleanser after we took a shower, so he wouldn't come into contact with butt wash water or something else. We laughed at him and told him he could disinfect the tub himself before he showered if he was so worried. If someone has a problem like that, I'd happily spray down the shower after use. Just a small thing, but fricking scrubbing the entire bathtub? Frick that. Not me or any roommate situation I've had, but you know when you've had a friend complain about something and you only hear their side of the story? If you still think they're wrong, they must be extra wrong, right? My friend told me that her roommate forgot his keys at home one night. This sucks because he works late. He rings the doorbell, she wakes up all angry, opens the window and says, "Oh, that's too bad, but it's late. Go back to your office and sleep." Rather than just accept his apology and open the door, she told him to go back to his workplace, sleep there, and just come home some other time. She was telling me the story as if I'd be like, wow, the nerve of this guy trying to come home. Instead, my initial reaction was, man, that's freaking annoying that he woke you up, which very quickly changed to, what the whole frick is wrong with you though, by the end of the story. Not yet a roommate, but started making outrageous demands. There was a time I was leasing out the spare bedroom of my home and there were a few weird, crazy requests I got. An elderly lady thought the room for rent also included me taking care for her as a caregiver and driving her around. She also demanded I install ADA ramp on my porch. A couple who was so sure I would select them as a roommate, I told them of my no pets policy, went to my yard and started to plan out how they plan to fence off a section for their doggy. Hello lady, this is my home. They got mad when I told them I was turning down their application. FYI, I have nothing against dogs, I have cats that happen not to play well with others, hence the no pet policy. Had an actual roommate that refused to pay the bill because she was broke and would close the door on me and expected me to pay for her part. Yet she was out all night partying and getting expensive weaves. She left her email open at my PC and I saw the cost. Told her I can't pay her part and she'll get evicted if the rent is not paid on time. She left a week later. You'd think the crazies would have it in their best interest to hide their eccentricity right up until the move-in. In my experience, that's what they usually do anyway. I moved into our first 3-person dorm room, so I picked the prime bed. None of us knew each other before this, we were all in a bind for housing, and lo and behold, she and her family shows up and gives me the stink for having the gall to take the good bed. I get along really well with my other roommate, but this girl started using all of our stuff and staring at us when we slept or did homework. We got ants because she never cleaned the kitchen, but she would hide dirty plates and bad food in the back of the very deep pantry instead of cleaning or throwing it away. She wouldn't let us have friends over but felt the need to talk loudly on the phone at all hours. I lost it when she left a pair of sweatpants on the floor of our shared closet with actual crap in them. We searched for a different room for her and made her move out. I still have the hate letter she wrote me the day after she left. I met my first roommate on Craigslist. First red flag, I guess. I wasn't allowed to keep my music above volume 10 after 9 or 10 p.m. She, however, sang gospel songs loudly in the living room until 4 or 5 in the morning, every single day. I had to open my mail in front of her, otherwise she'd open it because it looked important. Aside from this being totally illegal, why the frick do you need to read my bank statements? She'd text me when I got Amazon packages. "Oh, your shoes got here," because she'd open it and dig around before I got a chance to. She never cleaned, as in her mother still came over every weekend to clean her bedroom and bathroom. She had let her trash accumulate near her spot on the couch throughout the week. Clearly didn't give a crap about her living environment, but God forbid I put the television remote anywhere besides the right arm of the couch. I wasn't allowed to turn the heat on in the winter, to save money. I live in the mountains of North Carolina and the winters are pretty harsh. She would rather freeze than pay an extra $15 per month. Over the summer, though, I wasn't allowed to open the windows, so no one breaks in. My apartment was either in the 50s, 60s, or the 80s. She didn't like it when I used the kitchen to cook, strange, but she would hand wash her period panties in the kitchen sink, even though we each had a private bathroom. Frick you, Rebecca. I had one roomie announce one day that he was going to stop paying his share of the rent. I explained that no rent equals no room. He thought that was unreasonable and went around telling people I was cold. What a butthole. He wanted his girlfriend to move in rent-free. This girl used my cookware and never cleaned it. She took forever in the shower. We put an end to that real quick. My current roommate. I own the house and did a buttload of work to clean out the garage so I could turn it into a man cave. He did absolutely jack to help, and most of the work was cleaning up piles of recycling he never took out. Now it's cleared, he wants to park his car in there. But there's actual stuff taking up half the garage, so he would only be able to park in there while the other roommate and I park on the street and not use the driveway so that he can get in and out. He thinks I'm being unfair by not letting him park in there. Also, he cooks and never cleans, and has more than once let leftovers rot in my Tupperware and then thrown it out instead of cleaning it and not replaced it. This happens every time I move in with someone. Every single time. They tell me I don't do any dishes ever, which is very true. What I have to keep reminding them is that I have one plate, one bowl, one fork, one knife, and one spoon. Keep them in my room at all times. Always wash them immediately after I'm done using them and bring them right back into my room. Always hilarious to hear their response. Listen, guys, I have one single cup that I drink from every single day. I wash it before I fill it up for the day. I wash my pots and pans right after I'm done cooking, and my plates and silverware after I eat. The other 14 dirty glasses on the counter and sink full of week-old dishes are yours, and I'm not fricking washing them for you. I absolutely hate when people rotate who does the dishes, and then your dumb as frick roommates manage to use 4 glasses, all the pots and pans, and every available piece of silverware in like 5 hours. What in the holy frick are you cooking that makes so many pots and pans? Had an actress roommate who on random Saturdays and Sundays said she needed the entire apartment to herself to study her lines. I rarely had anyone over to begin with as I was usually out and about, but this particular Sunday there were like 4 of us in the living room watching Mythbusters. I only include this to show that it's not like we were watching NFL and screaming or shouting or being drunk. She legitimately thought this was not okay and that everyone else should leave to accommodate her. Anyone who thinks like this should live by themselves. I'll never understand how people who want to split costs to save money still think people should accommodate them. When I have roommates, I realize that if I want peace and quiet, I sometimes need to remove myself and go to the library or something. That's the price you pay to save money. It wasn't my roommate's unreasonable demand, but it was my roommate thinking my request was an unreasonable demand. My roommate and I rented a house together and the garage was pretty close to the living room. One day I was watching TV when I heard what sounded like something smashing into the garage. I waited a few seconds and went outside to see that my roommate had hit the garage with his truck and was chilling in his car texting. His car was still touching the garage. I told him to back up and he got really upset that I'd asked him to do that. Luckily, the damage was minimal, but what the frick, man? When I was a freshman in college, I lived in a dorm suite with 4 other girls, 3 single rooms and 1 double, which I shared with a roommate. One of the girls who lived in the single rooms was a real piece of work. Every slight change in the suite would drive her nuts, and she'd always be knocking on our door demanding an explanation for some minute thing or another. One time she knocked on my door only to show me a tiny scrap of ham and a piece of cereal pinched between her fingers. There was meat and cookie crisp on the kitchen floor. "Is this yours?" "Yes," I said. "You can throw those away." I also came home to her crying in the living room once because of another of our suite mates put a monster poster on the front door for a Halloween decoration, and it scared her. I guess those things don't sound too crazy out of context, but she'd knock to tell me she'd moved my food from the table to the counter and just general tiny stuff like that. Very strange. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.